college campus or in somebody's high school, either teaching English, literature, or reading whatever. Success is a statistical event. The average individual in our lifetime, or the average individual in society, gets 4 ideas a year, any one of which, if they had the guts, the courage, the fortitude to follow them through, would make that person financially independent. So why don't we do it? Well, a whole host of things. Low self-image. You know, we don't believe in ourselves. Lack of faith. I'm here to tell you that anybody, it's not a question of can you succeed, it's a question of will you succeed. And that's it in a nutshell. That's all success is. That's all I ever did. When I left school, I didn't want to become a top surgeon. I didn't want to become a president of a firm. I didn't want to go to the moon, fly to the moon like Mae Jemison. All I ever wanted to do was to position myself in a position where if there was anybody in the United States, in the 48 contiguous states or throughout the country, anybody who wanted to know anything about blacks, success, wealth, achievement, or leadership, they had to call me. And that's all I ever did. That's all I ever did. It took me 6 years to write the book. 6 years to write the book. And I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for my lovely wife, Pat. Pat, stand up. See, I don't mind telling you the truth. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I'm just telling you the way it is. If it wasn't for her, I would not be standing here. 6 years it took me to write the book. When I started interviewing these achievers, I guess I'd interviewed about 20 of them. And W. Clement Stone of the Napoleon Hill Foundation caught wind of what I was doing. Now, who is Napoleon Hill? Napoleon Hill is arguably the #1 success, motivational, inspirational writer that this country has ever produced. If you took Napoleon Hill and put him in a foot race with all the men and women who you see out on the circuit today, if you put them in a mile foot race, get them all, line them up, put them in a mile foot race with Napoleon Hill, by the time Napoleon Hill crossed the finish line, he would be so far out in front, if he turned over his shoulder, he couldn't even tell you who's in second place. Napoleon Hill was a white gentleman born in utter poverty in Virginia who carved out a very illustrious speaking and writing career for himself. He wrote 16 books. 6 of his books are still on the market today. His all-time 2 bestsellers, his first one was called Laws of Success, but in the 1930s he published Think and Grow Rich. At last count, that book has sold more than 16 million copies. More than 250,000 blacks have read the original Think and Grow Rich and use it as a springboard in their life. The last thing Napoleon Hill ever attempted to do in 1970 was to write a black version of Think and Grow Rich. He gets 100 pages into the manuscript and he dies of a stroke. He is 83 years old. Those 100 pages sat on the desk of W. Clement Stone for 16 years until I walked into his office. Now, who is W. Clement Stone? W. Clement Stone is the president of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. In the 1970s, he was the wealthiest individual in the world. He was #1 on the Forbes 400 richest list. And he caught wind of what I was doing. He called me up and he says, "Young man, when can you come to Chicago? I'd like to meet you." My wife and I flew to Chicago, met W. Clement Stone. And prior to that, I told Mr. Stone, I said, you know, he asked me why I got involved in this project, why I was going around the country interviewing successful black achievers. And I said, Mr. Stone, I wanted to find the answers to 2 questions. Question number 1, why does one man or woman fail while another succeeds? And question number 2, why is one individual rich and wealthy while another is impoverished? And at that time, W. Clement Stone said to me, he says, well, based on what we see and hear, we want you to push your book aside and we want you to finish this book. And I said, what book? And that's when he placed in my hands the last 100 pages written by Napoleon Hill. And I looked at it, and I looked at Mr. Stone, and I said, well, I can't finish this book. He said, why not? I said, well, I want to finish my book. He said, put your book aside. And I said, second of all, I can't finish this book. And he says, why not now? And I said, well, I don't have any money. I said, I'll finish it under one condition. If you pay me If you give me some type of financial inducement, if you underwrite me, then I'll finish the book. And then W. Clement Stone said something to me I'll never forget. He said, young man, if you really want to find out the answers to the question why one person fails and another succeeds, if you really want to find out the answer to the question why one person is rich and wealthy while another is impoverished, it is in this laboratory that you must find it. He said, no, I'm not going to pay you. And for 6 or 7 years, I crisscrossed the nation. I was hit with every type of financial situation, you name it, I was hit with it. Didn't lose one car, lost 2. Couldn't begin to tell you how many times my water, gas, electricity was cut off. So I just showed you I had a wife and 3 kids that I hadn't cared for. See, the Bible says it came to pass, not it came to stay. So I think I'll just stop my little talk right here and open it up for Q&A and use that as a springboard. If anybody has any questions, we'll just take off from there. Yeah.
What do you comments now with the passing of Reginald Lewis, who earlier this week was one of the richest black men, not the richest black men in America? You hear about Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, and he certainly got known as America's richest individual. He certainly ranks the top slot this year. But the passing of Reginald Lewis, certainly a milestone that not only Black History Month, certainly went out with the winner. No headlines. He was best title was he was former CEO of BFS. No milestone about being the richest black man in America.
Well, they had a nice piece in USA Today. They had a couple of pieces in Wall Street Journal. I was interviewed by a writer from the Gannett Services about the same question. As a matter of fact, I was in Denver and I had a phone interview. Reg Lewis is one of the few individuals who I did not get a chance to interview. Very private man. I tried for more than 2 years to get through his lieutenants. The closest I got to Reg Lewis, I had a lengthy conversation with his director of communications, and I did have a nice conversation and an interview with a gentleman up in New York who helped Reg Lewis put together the deal. I just asked him the mechanics of the deal. Very private individual. It's a real-life tragedy that we didn't get to enjoy some of the fruits of what Reg Lewis did. But Reg Lewis was not the first one to put together a leverage buyout. That honor goes to Bruce Llewellyn. The first leverage buyout in the United States was by a black man, Bruce Llewellyn, in the 1970s with Fedco Foods. An interesting anecdote, I did get a chance to spend some time with Bruce Llewellyn.